Hello, welcome to another episode of Set Musings. The set in question for this episode is Shadows over Innistrad, released on April the 8th, 2016. You can see in the boosters there's 297 cards, so 105 commons, 100 uncommons, 59 rares, 18 mythic rares, 15 basic lands, so that means there's 3 pieces of artwork per colour of mana. You'll notice up here it says 302 cards. The reason behind that is, and I actually didn't know this about the set at the time, maybe I did and I'd forgotten it, or I just didn't notice it, but apparently there were 5 card variations for Tamio's journal, and you can see each one of these has a different line of text on it for the entry there, even though all of these have the same card number in the set. So yeah, interesting. And just scrolling through this as I do, so we can see the artwork, what to look out for. So firstly, this is quite obviously the first set, the large set of the Shadows over Innistrad block. So we're into the 2-set paradigm now, 2 sets per block. Shadows over Innistrad, first set, large set, Eldritch Moon, the second set, and that, if I just double check, is 205 cards. So 297 in the first set, 205 in the second set. Themes and mechanics to watch out for. Discard, there's a graveyard matters, graveyard interaction theme, there's a tribal theme, heavy tribal theme, double face cards feature in the set. Keywords abilities to look out for. We've got discard, we've got delirium. I already mentioned discard. We've got delirium, we've got investigate, we've got madness, we've got skulk, and we've got transform. Now, because of the presence, the tribal presence here, you'll see that I've sliced and diced the colours in multiple ways. It does make it a little bit iterative in that, you know, we're seeing the same things through different angles, but I always think that it is worth looking at a set from both a colour perspective, in terms of the creatures, and if it is a heavy tribal set, then through the lens of whatever colour combination might equate to the different tribes present. So yeah, there's a bit more time going to be spent in this episode, you know, looking through that lens because of the tribal aspect. You can see here's one of the double face cards, and as I've been scrolling down, you probably been noticing the keywords and abilities crop up here, and you might be already getting some feel for the tribes. So we're now into the 2 colour cards, and not many. Looks like a mainly monocolour set, although that's not to say the tribes exist in a single colour, of course. And then you can see here we've got a number of artifacts in the set, smattering of non-basic lands, and then we get on to our basic lands, which we'll revisit midway maybe, or towards the end of this episode. So let's dive in, starting off with reprints. So we've got 15 reprints in here. I'm curious, so of course Unruly Mob had previously been in original in Innistrad, and the presence of some of these in original Innistrad may affect, obviously, whether or not they've chosen to redo the artwork. So this was from Rise of Eldrazi, and you can see the artwork's quite different. Off the top of my head, oh, here's one, yeah. So there's another Innistrad one where they didn't change the artwork. Mad Prophet was from Avacyn Restored, and they did choose to change the artwork. And you can see that one's from Shadowmoor, and again the artwork's been changed. So 15 reprints, which leaves us with 267 cards which are not reprints. Now going through the various amounts of the different colours, you know, no colour, one colour, two colour, so on. So 36 cards which have no colour in the casting cost. And scrolling down, I think we can see, and I've just got some lands down the bottom as well, but just looking at the artefacts, I don't see any that require colourless mana to activate an ability there. So cards with single colour in the casting cost, and we've got 241 of those. Two colours, we've got 11 with two colours in the casting cost. And as we go through this and look at different cycles, we may well find that some of these cards which are a single colour casting cost may have activation costs in another colour. For instance, Nahiri's Machinations falls into that category. So white to cast, but it has a red activation cost. And as I've done before, you can sort of compare and contrast that in Scryfall very easily. If I change this from colour to ID, now it's purely based on colour identity. It's 231 as opposed to the colour in the casting cost, which is 241. So that tells us that 10 of the cards here, you know, fall outside of that category. And what you can do, we should be able to do, let me just play around with this as we're able to do this. So we've got 5. Let's do that. 200. There we go. So it's 15 cards there because it's included the. Oh no, there we go. 15 cards. What did I say? 10. Oh, I know why. Of course, these are two colour because of the transform. Okay, that makes sense. So moving on to how individual colours might relate to tribes. So in white, angels, spirits, there's some humans, a hound, human soldier, a fox. So quite a lot of spirits here. And humans. And then we have a two colour card which has white in it. Moving on to blue, it's 26 cards. And you can see a number of these, and we'll get on to transform in a moment. There's a number there with transform on them. So human, spirits, there's a zombie there. In fact, there's a number of zombies. So it looks like spirits and zombies with... Now there's a vampire here because the flip side is blue. And then we've got some two colour cards here in blue-green and blue-black. Moving on to black again. There's black on the other side. And we have zombies here. Some vampires. So black looks like vampires and zombies predominantly. But of course the other sort of things you might see in here again. Got the odd human. There's a nightmare horse for your nightmare horse deck. And then three two colour cards which have black in them. And then also there's Westphal Abbey, because that converts into a legendary creature demon, which you can tell by the frame there is in black. Moving on to red. So a couple of cards here where red is on the flip side. And we're seeing werewolves and wolves. And vampires as well, amongst other things. And then a single card which shares another colour. And then finally with green, there's more humans in here. But notice as well, some of these are human werewolves. And then moving down, we've got two colour cards that share green in their casting cost. So we've only got 4 cards where the casting cost is 7 or greater. Sorcery, and then 3 creatures. 7 up to 8. Remember I said that discard was a thing? So there's 32 cards that have discard in some form. You can see most of those blue and black, and then we've got red and green. So it is represented in all the colours, it's just some more than others. And then got a couple of multicolour cards which mention discards somewhere, and then we've got these artifacts here. Graveyard, 65 cards that reference the graveyard in some form, and we'll see why there's so many in a moment when we look at Delirium and how present that was in the set. But if we look down, we've got some in white, some in blue, black, red, green, and then probably a few multicoloured, and some artifacts, and also a land which has a graveyard interaction. So in terms of the original tribes, So there's 16 cards which have spirit on them. You can see, so white, blue and black, and well, white, blue, black and green basically, but mainly in white and blue. 15 zombies, blue, black, and then also the 2-colour blue black card, so it's a bit more straightforward. Vampires, 17 in black and red with a single 2-colour card, and 12 werewolves. I'll do a search in a moment for just wolf as well. So we got red and green there. If we do wolf, we've got 9 cards where it's just a wolf as well. It's also red and green. So wolves and werewolves in red and green. And then finally, humans. So white, blue, black, red and green. Double face. So 33 double face cards on there. And I'm going to flip these over so we can see. But first of all, we'll just have a look. So white, blue, black, red, green. I mean, so it's roughly the same. There might be some colours up there where it's slightly more. You notice also we've got some double face cards that start out as artifacts and also a land. And there's a double face planeswalker as well. So let's go down these and flip them and see what we have. So Avacyn into Avacyn the Purifier. Make equivalence. So you can see, again, we've got this sort of day and night symbol as well, which obviously we've come across in other Magic sets. So transform, just to clarify, was in the original Innistrad block. And to transform means you turn over a double face card, changing the card face that is visible. The front day side of the card has a regular card frame and mana cost and a sun symbol. Oops. Try and flip that back with that. There we go. And a sun symbol. The reverse or night side has the moon symbol and a slightly altered frame. In fact, I see echoes of this style of frame in earlier Magic sets. You know, that whole block that Future Sight was in. I can't remember the specific set, but it was that particular block that had Future Sight. Delirium. So what does Delirium do? There's 27 cards. We see it in white, blue, black, red and green. And you can see from the templating here, it's caring about the number of cards in the graveyard. So you mentioned, I said there were a lot of graveyard cards that mention the graveyard. And part of that is because of the presence of delirium, which within the rules text has this caring about 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. So what it cares about is the same on all the cards, 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. What it does as a result of that, you can see, is quite different on different cards. So the trigger is the same, but what that trigger does is quite different. But what you might notice is in instances where there is like a non-delirium ability, there is some connection between them. But not all. That's not the case with all. Some don't have it. Some the ability that's there beyond the delirium isn't of the same nature. We've got investigate. So with investigate, you put a colourless clue artifact token onto the battlefield with to sacrifice this artifact to draw a card. And we're seeing those in white, blue and green, and a couple on artifacts. Madness. So if you discard this card, discard it into exile. When you do, cast it for its madness cost or put it into your graveyard. So if you happen to discard these cards for whatever reason, you get the opportunity to cast it for its madness cost. But of course you can also cast it as a regular card when you're not discarding it and it's in your hand. $19 of those. Skulk, I nearly said sulk. So this creature can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. Skulk's on the flip side of that. And then Odric is included because it references Skulk. So on Odric, at the beginning of each combat, creatures you control gain first strike until end of turn. If a creature you control has first strike, the same is true for flying, death touch. That would be good actually, death strike. Death touch, double strike, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, skulk, trample and vigilance. We'll be talking about Odric later. Here's our transform cards. So what you'll notice is you have obviously some sort of trigger here to transform the card. So uninvited guest as an example, when an uninvited guest deals combat damage to a player, transform it. And that's what it transforms into. In the case of Gaia Reach Bandit, at the beginning of each upkeep, if no spells were cast last turn, transform Gaia Reach Bandit. And then you might find in the case of this one as well, on the flip side, it also has a transform. So this is whenever a werewolf enters the battlefield under your control, you may transform it. So there's a reference to transform in some capacity on the backs of some of these cards. Now this one, the reference to transform is in terms of something that it blocks. So interesting to see we have these auras in the set, and we've seen white auras like this before in other sets, which stop a creature attacking or blocking or whatever, like a pacifism type effect. In this one as well, it stops transforming. So it's sort of pacifism plus. And it has this additional ability where you can sacrifice another permanent and attach bound by a Moonsilver to target creature. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery and only once each turn. So it's interesting when you see these auras that have the ability to jump as well. And you occasionally see that in Magic sets in different ways of doing that. It's always interesting when you get that. So onto the cycles. Cycle of crazed creatures. So 5 uncommon creatures which repeat their ETB, their enters the battlefield ability, each turn when they reach delirium. Then we've got this cycle of vassals, so 5 common enchantments with an activated ability that sacrifices it. And then you get something for that. So it looks like these don't do anything until they're sacked, so they sort of sit there for however long they need to before you can invest the mana to do this, or at the point at which it's provident to do that. Then we have these 5 common another tribal creature effects. So 5 common creatures that improve when played while another of its tribe is on the battlefield. So for the white one, it's spirits. For the blue one, it's zombies. For the black one, it's vampires. For the red one, it's wolves or werewolves. And for the green one, it's humans. So you can see here, this is interesting. So what we have here is, I've put a couple of cycles together because these are all uncommon. We've got 5 uncommon multicolour cards for 1 and M or 2 and an M. So now here is Machinations, Ongoing Investigation, Behind the Scenes. We've got Geist Blast, and then we've got Autumnal Gloom, and the activated ability requires an enemy colour, and you can see that. Now the other interesting thing is there's a cycle of, I've seen then in the MTG Wiki article, they're referred to as tiny tribal lords. And the reason why I've got these alongside is these also have an activated ability in them for the allied colours, but these are all creatures. as opposed to the other ones which were, well, mainly enchantments and one instant. But you'll also notice with these, the reason why they're tribal in nature is they reference each of the main tribes. So the white one has blue in its activation cost, and that's spirits. The blue one is black in its activation cost, and that's zombies. The black one has red, and that's vampires. The red one has green, and that's wolves or werewolves. And then the green one has white, and that's humans in it. Now, the other thing to remember with this is that because there's such a strong tribal aspect, that's also going to support the deck archetype. So, there's your sort of draft indicators, if you like, I suppose. But it gets interesting because there's also sort of full-on rare tribal lords, so 5 rare creatures that support the deck archetype for each tribe. They don't have an allied activation cost in them, but you can see the white one references humans, the blue one spirits, the black one zombies, the red one vampires, and then the green one wolves or werewolves. But you can see that's different than the ones that are uncommon. So they've sort of shifted to their other tribe, if you like, the one they overlap, because of course they're not beholden to an activation cost. Rare transformers, so there's 5 rare forming cards, double face cards. Handwear Militia Captain, Thing in the Ice, Elusive Tormentor, Gar-Reach Bandit, which we've looked at before, and Sage of Ancient Lore. Five rare dual lands. I believe these are referred to as shadow lands. So they enter the battlefield tapped, except if you reveal a land with the corresponding basic land type from your hand. Nice artwork. And there's some enemy coloured tap lands in here. So 5 uncommon dual lands that enter the battlefield tapped. Again, nice artwork. Now with these, I think I mentioned in the other episode, a lot of times these tap lands, and I don't know if it was true in the case of these because these are uncommon, but these would often start to turn up like a full set of them in the deck builders toolkits as well. So we're starting to see more of these dual colour tap lands in the toolkits. There's a partial cycle of madness sorceries. So these are 3 rare monocolour sorceries which have madness and X in their madness cost. Welcome to the Fold, From Under the Floorboards, and Avacyn's Judgment. 18 mythics. And you can see, as we look down, obviously you see a number of planeswalkers there. There's a number of legendary creatures, which we'll get onto in a moment. And then a smattering of other spell types. There's a few regular creatures as well. Oh, basic lands. I'm certainly looking forward to the next edition of my Yuletide special, which, yeah, it's not long off actually. We're in November now, so normally I drop that sometime in December. So it'll be interesting to carry on from where I left off and do the next few sets for that. But yeah, I do also particularly enjoy, I think, the artwork for the Innistrad plane sets. I don't always do like favourite piece of artwork, because simply a lot of them, I just have so many favourites when I'm looking at land, and it changes so much as well, because I'll pick up a set which I haven't seen for a while and I think, yeah, no, that's my favourite now. And it's been cool sort of going through all these sets, looking at the artwork, but I definitely, this and this really pop. This one, maybe that one, I don't know. Oh, look at all these water spouts, I think they're supposed to be. Oh, isn't that nice? Okay, non-basic lands. Well, we've seen a couple of cycles already, so that would take up 10 slots. So what have we got left? So Westvale Abbey, which we've actually seen already, but I don't think that was part of the cycle of anything, apart from the fact that it was a transform card, but that wasn't really a cycle. And then we have these two cards, which are really interesting. We've got Drowned Temple, which can be used to return itself from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Generates colourless mana. Notice the presence of the new colourless mana symbol. And Warp Landscape, which also generates colourless mana, but you can use it to, you can sack it, we've got to pay 2 obviously, to sack it and then search your library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. There's quite a big mana investment in this to get it to do stuff, so you can just generate colourless mana, but 5, tap it, pay 1 life, put a 1/1 white and black human creature, cleric creature token onto the battlefield. If you sacrifice 5 creatures, transform Westvale Abbey, then untap it, and you end up with this. Whoops, I didn't click on the right thing there. This thing we saw earlier, which is Ormondal, Profane Prince, legendary creature, demon, flying, lifelink, indestructible, and haste. And there they are, isolated. Again, let's spend a moment to appreciate the land artwork. So, I thought because there's quite a number of planeswalkers and legendary creatures, so I'd go back to splitting the two down when I'm looking at legendaries. I actually hadn't noticed how different this Sorin artwork was. It has quite an unusual quality to it. So we've got 4 planeswalkers, 4 legendary planeswalkers. 3 of them are 2-colour, 1 is monocolour, and one of the 2-colour ones has transform on it. And then 7 legendary creatures, so 2 in white, actually sorry, 7 legendaries, 5 of which are creatures, 1 is an artifact and 1 is a land. So we've got Archangel Avacyn, which transforms. We've got Odric, we have Olivia, Sigarda, the Gitrog monster, which I know people were very excited about when the set came out. Tamio's Journal, which I'd mentioned, has alternate versions with a different entry number in them and a different entry, and Westvale Abbey. I just want to say I'm really enjoying this set actually. It's making me very happy and very relaxed, which is good. Particularly happy to see Odric. Okay, 144 creatures in the set. Nice folks. Yeah, such cool artwork. Yeah, Friday's artwork video is going to be cool. I'm going to be spoiled for choice actually. To decide how I'm going to execute that in terms of what I want to include. It's 23 enchantments. White, blue, black, black, red and green, and there's a 2-coloured one. Including that cycle we looked at, you know, the vessel. And we got 13 auras. We saw Bound by Moon Silver earlier. So white, blue, black, red and green. So quite a number here. And again, I'm just looking out to see if they enchant anything unusual. I'll explain why that's there in a moment. So, creature. Skip over this one, we'll go back to that in a moment. Still creatures. That one's got flash on it. Oh, this is the land one. So, adds 2 mana of any colour. So you get these interesting enchantments that crop up in quite a lot of sets, not always. They're often in green and they buff lands in some way. And this one is interesting because it also has Investigate sort of taped to it as well when it enters the battlefield. Now going back, let's look at a Cursed Witch. So on the flip side it's an Aura Curse. So yeah. That enchants the player. It's been a while, I think, since we've seen enchant player. So 5 artifact creatures. Eight pieces of equipment, and if it's anything like the previous Innistrad block, then you often find they were very flavourful pieces of equipment. You know, their action very much fitted in with the whole horror theme. But there's some pretty cool stuff in here. Got Haunted Cloak with equipped creature has vigilance, trample and haste. There's also a transform here. And we've got skeleton key. And no doubt some of these will crop up in the Commander Durdle episode. Artifacts. And we have, of course, Brain in a Jar. We have an explosive apparatus, magnifying glass with this investigate ability on it, and once again, Tamiyo's journal. $39 instants. Wow. Okay. So what have we got? Oh, this flicker thing, which we've seen before. So you exile any number of target creatures you control. You return these cards to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. That's the opposite. There was another in Innistrad. There was a version of that which you could target your opponent, and so you could bounce all of their creatures out of the way and then alpha strike them, and then they'd be dead, but they would then bounce back. Expose evil, tap up to 2 target creatures. What do we got? So power dependent creature destruction. Yeah, here. Try target a second creature, you gain 3 life. Wow. Quite a lot of combat trick stuff as well, by the looks of things. Counter spells in blue. Card draw with discard. Bounce. More counter spell. Mass bounce. Library manipulation. Okay, bounce with counters. More counter spells. Asymmetric depletion. More bounce. So yeah, lots of utility at lots of different, a number of different rarities, which is always nice to see. Lopsided pump with lifelink. Conditional card draw in black, always nice to see. Oh, a -4/-4 spell in the form of throttle. Creature sacking, or planeswalkers actually. Tokens in red. Fight, single damage spell. There's a 3 damage spell with madness on it. 2 damage spell. Conditional damage, the good old 5 damage. Asymmetric pump with double strike, so again more combat trick stuff, at instant speed. Pump, ways of dealing with flying, investigating pump, counters. Oh, more fight type effects, token, multiplication, I suppose. Yeah, this one, second harvest, instant speed, and this interesting white-black non-land permanent destruction. You do lose 3 life for the privilege of doing that, but yeah. Sorceries, 39 sorceries, wow. Exile, life gain, more exile shenanigans, yep. Sorcery speed pump, graveyard manipulation, equipment and aura, tutoring, bounce, top of the library manipulation, more of that, card draw and discard, tap down, tokens, well, condition, that's interesting actually. Black zombie creature tokens on the back for a tap for each. So yeah, it's a sorcery in your graveyard. Mill, one of those gain control spells with a condition on it. Life swap with madness, discard. This thing that black sometimes does where it gives all creatures a certain amount of depletion, so in this case -2 until end of turn. Graveyard recursion. Multiple tokens. More tokens. Yes, a lot of tokens. A lot of token generation in the set in different colours. Mill with life drain. Graveyard. There's our sorcery speed destruction spell. Tap target creature. Hand manipulation or hand disruption. More conditional tokens. We got damage with madness, X damage spell and sorcery speed, tokens. This sort of selective blocking or selective evasion. Oh, there's the usual red gain control spell to end of turn. There's our sorcery speed 5 damage spell. Oh, here we go. Artifact and land destruction in red. Card drawing red. Tutoring in green. Fight, sorcery speed. Fight type effect. Artifact enchantment destruction in green. Graveyard recovery. And more basic land tutoring with delirium. Okay, yeah, ton of utility there in the sorceries and instants. And then back to the whole set. Lovely. Okay, let's look at prices now. So, looks like there's, so this would have been the promo for the pre-release, I'm assuming. $59. Interesting. So $12.31 for the regular card. So we've got some. I wonder if this was because there were different promos for the pre-release. Stamp card that can be any rare or mythic rare from the set. Okay, that makes more sense now. Fair enough. Okay. Yep, so hence here. So if you look at the prices here, it's interesting because only the first two cards, the regular printings, are above $10, and then it drops off pretty fast. But you've got these pre-release promos, which, because of the fact they could be any rare or mythic from the set, a little bit more expensive. Wow. That one's $40. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Again, something I'd completely forgotten about. I wonder if that happened with other sets. Something I've not really noticed is whether or not, because of the nature of the pre-release promos. Because I know often when you used to go to pre-release, everybody got the same promo, and then they started fiddling around a bit as they produced those sort of pre-release kits. But I think this was before the pre-release kits. I could be wrong. Yeah. So moving on to our sort of EDH lens. First up. So these are all the non-reprints in order in which they are ranked on EDH Rec. So from the set, non-reprints, so new cards, Anguished Unmaking, no surprise there. And then if you look down, you can see a lot of the rare dual lands, and we've got a rare utility land there. But obviously things like Open the Armory, Second Harvest, Eerie Interlude, you can sort of see, the utility that you would get in Commander, in EDH. Good old Odric. Nice to see that above Gitrog, and you'll see why in a moment. So again, let's just commit that to memory, where these fall. And then looking at the reprints, Tormenting Voice, Fiery Temper, Lightning Axe, Groundskeeper, Makara Waltz, Unruly Mob, and so on. So let's see where the two mesh together. So yeah, definitely the set as a whole is bubbling above the reprints, and the first reprint kicks in here. Tormenting Voice. So we've got a number of cards above that, which in the EDH ranking bubble to the top. So let's talk about a few other things around the set. The set itself, interesting things going on here. We've got the booster battle packs, which I'll talk a little bit about, and there was a deck builders toolkit out at that point. And I haven't really covered deck builders toolkit much, but I thought I'd just mention this. Because there have been one or two changes to deck builders toolkits over the years from the very original one, and long-term viewers of I nearly said the set, long-term viewers of the channel will know one of my earliest videos was in fact opening the very, very first deck builders toolkit. And I actually split that down into 5 videos, I think. That probably was back in the day when I don't know if longer videos were in by then. Maybe they were, and I just did it for convenience, because I wasn't too sure how long it would take me, having never opened an intro, never opened a toolkit before. So 5 intro packs. and you can see here we've got 2 in allied and then 3 enemy coloured. And let's go through these. So Ghostly Tide, you'll probably notice if you look at these here, doesn't give us a lot of information actually, which is unusual. So my guess is, looking at these, if we look at the colour combinations, this is going to be like a spirit tribal. That will be the white blue. Then this one, which is the blue green. Okay, very interesting. And we've got a red black, red white, and green black. Okay. Is it going to tell us anything about? It's unusual for the MTG wiki article not to have a description of what the decks are. So what does it say here? Blah blah blah. Will you dominate the battlefield with vampiric thirst, achieve victory through wisdom with unearthed secrets, glide to your opponent's defences with ghostly tide, harness the power of death with horrific visions, or smite your foes with angelic fury? It's interesting they chose not to go down the sort of 2-colour tribal route for some reason, and mix it up a little bit. Battle packs. So these basically contain 2 Welcome Deck 2016 sample decks and 2 Shadows over Innistrad booster packs. Each sample deck contains basic lands, commons, 4 commons, uncommons and a rare. The decks also contain cards from Battle for Zendikar, Oath of the Gatewatch, Shadows over Innistrad. These were only available apparently at big box stores. I seem to remember buying one and opening it. I think the idea is that they were like, if you've ever done Pack Wars, where with Pack Wars you have a certain amount of basic land, and it's normally all 5 colours, and then you open the pack up and you play the pack. This is slightly different from what I remember. I'm doing this from memory, in that, you know, obviously your welcome deck contained a certain amount of cards, and then you'd open the pack and then you'd put in basically cards that were on colour and playable. I think that's basically how it worked. Let me just see if I can refresh my memory. So they're putting it in the 2-player starter deck section. Interesting. So they consider it to be similar-ish to that, I suppose. Oh, and the clash packs. Yeah, so basically you're just supplementing the ready-to-play deck, the 30-card deck, with cards from the booster decks. So I suppose it is more in that area of starter decks, really, than anything else. And there was a deck builder's toolkit to go with this. 100 basic land cards, 20 of each from Shadows over Innistrad, 40 of 125 semi-randomized cards, suitable for building several different magic decks. So yeah, what happened there was like a card pool, a potential pool of so many cards, and the deck builders toolkit, you got sort of random sections, 40 cards from that pool of cards, if you like. I'm not sure whether this was at some point, yeah, they started to include rares in the toolkits. Again, I can't remember specifically when that happened, but yeah, the original toolkits, the thing about them, apart from the booster packs you got with them, they never had any rares in them as part of the fixed content. This is a useful article because it lists the random and the semi-random, and these are the different deck strategies that it can pull for, and you can see they're all in sort of groups of 10, so you would get 4 of these groups of 10 in your deck builders toolkit. But that's a lot less than they used to do. If you remember the first ones, I think there were 13 different groups of 10 maybe. Again, not 100% sure on that. Okay, on to the deck Durdle episode. So it's Odric. I've been waiting to do this for a long while. I did mess around with an Odric deck once before, not on camera, and yeah, very interesting commander to play around with. Just to goldfish this. Yeah, just interesting to see the synergies that kick in with the right combination of creatures in this, and that's what we're looking for, to see what architects suggest to us and see what things it tends to go for. I found particularly interesting is when you have a whole load of lifelinkers, the sort of right type of lifelinkers, things can get seriously out of hand in terms of your count, your life count can go through the roof with this. And you can see I pulled in some other cards from the set, which I'll talk about in the episode. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in the next episode.